Welcome to episode 22 of In and Out of Character, a role players podcast. Hey guys, I really do appreciate you listening in. I know that my voice isn't the best voice, but I still do appreciate everyone who downloads and listens. Today I am talking to someone named Joseph, also from the Roleplay Rejects, who I had on Misty last week. This week I'm going to have Joseph on, and I was very happy to get to talk to him, so let's bring him in. Why are you so damn funny?
Oh, I don't know. I'd like to say I think it's because my grandma gave me a joke book when I was a kid. Yeah, that's why.
I'll be honest, that one took me off by surprise for a second there.
No, what was the name of that book? There was this book called like 100 Jokes and How to Tell Them.
Mm-hmm.
And it talked about different types of comedy and like how to not only like how to it wasn't just a list of jokes, right? It talked about like what makes something funny versus what doesn't. And my family has a history of Asperger's, so social interactions can be really awkward for me.
Mm-hmm.
And so whenever I could get a leg up on that, I would read like books on jokes, and I'd read books on body language, and I would read books on like leadership and that sort of thing, and like try to glean as much as I could so that I could seem semi-normal to the rest of the world.
Is that how you got into role playing as like a tabletop? Because when I hear you on the podcast, the Roleplay Rejects, check them out, roleplayrejects.com, I think. But when I hear you, you sound very confident. You sound like you definitely belong in a group environment. So is that what led you to tabletop? Is just wanting to make sure that you were a part of what is that? Social,
like a tribe, yeah, like a
yes,
group.
yeah.
That's a big part of it. I really like role playing as like a way to experiment socially.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what do I believe when it comes to this situation? And like, if I was a completely different character, what would that look like in the Fallout apocalypse or in Star Wars land?
Mm-hmm.
And I really like, I think part of that is just like my fascination with this like social aspect that I don't always click with, right?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
All right, that's that. So how did but I am curious, like, how exactly did you get into role playing?
So it's kind of a roundabout story. So growing up, I was not introduced to any role playing at all. No D&D, no Pathfinder, not even like the bad side of it where people are like, don't do it, right? I never got the opportunity growing up. I did. I guess this also is why I'm semi-funny, is I did comedy improv in high school. It was one of the many after-school classes that I stuck around and did. And I really liked that, like, banter and the whose line is it anyway type improv. But at the same time, at the end of it, a lot of times I'd be like, man, I wish I could have like told a more serious story. I wish we could have explored other things than just we're all funny, right? And one of my best friends in high school, Ivan, his dad had a very long-standing D&D campaign, and he was the only person that I knew that even had exposure to D&D. But Ivan was such an introvert, I don't think he ever even invited us to this game. And his dad was a forever GM. You could kind of tell it from his face. And he was a librarian. So I feel like he was one of those people that focuses a lot on his games, and a librarian's a great place to sit around and read rule books, right? So
Mm-hmm.
I really look up to librarians. My grandma was a librarian too, and so like when I got to meet him, I was like, oh, this guy's really cool. Like, but again, I never got into it in high school. And then Misty and I got married. All right. Misty's one of the other Roleplay Rejects. If y'all haven't listened to that podcast yet, or listened to that episode of this podcast yet.
They better.
Yeah, they better.
They better listen to both. They better stop
Yeah.
right now, go listen to everything Roleplay Rejects has done, come back to this, realize that they need to go listen to the last episode, and go do that too.
Oh man, yeah, that's going to take them a while. We broke 100 episodes.
Yes, I know, and I'm so happy for you guys. But
Yeah.
we'll get into that in a minute. You
Okay.
keep going with what you're saying.
Sorry, yeah. So Misty grew up playing D&D and being exposed to D&D and Pathfinder through her friends. So when we got married, right, it hadn't come up while we were dating, but then she was talking with some coworkers. Damien was one of them, and he was like, "Oh, I've got this Pathfinder game that I've been doing for a while. Do you guys want to jump in on it?" And she's like, "I don't know. Like Joseph's never talked about it before." And when she brought it up to me, I was like, "Oh yeah, heck yeah! Like I've never had the opportunity, and like I'm down. Let's do this." And we had an on and off game for a little while because of the other players. Obviously, we're cracked, but people would cancel, and that whole like the hardest part of role playing is getting everyone to the room. And so we did that for a few years. We actually both moved to another state, and Damien was my first contact where we live now. And I was like, "Hey, are you still running like Pathfinder games?" And he was like, "I'm part of a group right now. So as soon as you guys move out here, we can get started." And so that's how I got introduced into role playing. Was my spouse kind of got the ball rolling,
leading the charge.
Yeah, exactly.
That's cool. I like when that sort of thing happens, because instead of just being like a separate person who's coming into a group, it's more of you're coming in together with people that you already know, and it feels a lot more. When you sit down with a group you don't know, it can be very nerve-wracking.
Yeah, oh, definitely.
Mm-hmm. And with your friends, you're much more comfortable. So I can only imagine how that went.
Yeah. Just a couple weeks ago, we were at the Nova Open, and I ran games in a convention setting for the first time, and it's stressful, right? You don't know what kind of players you're gonna end up with. You don't know if you're a player, you don't know the GM and how much they've prepared or how little they've prepared. And yeah, like it's stressful those first couple times. At the convention too, there were like different levels of inebriation going on for the night games. So there was all those different levels, and that's how it is with anybody getting into the role playing space. Is they have to find the right group, and usually, I'll be honest, that's the hardest part, is finding some people that are consistent, that want to set that time aside, and that are comfortable with each other, right? Because role playing is really vulnerable, right? You are bearing your soul a lot of the time to each other, and you're very often like unearthing like subconscious like biases, or you're unearthing like situations that you didn't know you'd be uncomfortable in, and you really have to have a table that you can say anything in front of a lot of the time, because it does get so personal. Role playing is a very
It's like you said, a very personal thing, and
Yeah.
it's really cool that you just said that, because that's something that I really advocate for in role playing, is being able to step out of your boundaries and talk to other people about these things that are inside of you. Like, I can't believe how many things I found out about myself by just role playing. I understand myself much more, and I like to believe that I got into role playing because there were these things in my head that I wanted to explore and identify with, but I wasn't able to do so until I took myself out of my shoes and put them in
Yep.
someone else's.
Yeah, and that's one thing that's been great in our group and going through all of these different game systems. For those of you that don't know, Roleplay Rejects, we play new and unusual role playing games. And so one week we'll be playing something super dark like Morkborg, where it's the end of the world and everyone's dirty and nasty and life is terrible. And then we'll be playing Star Wars, where it's still like it's still a role playing game, but it is a very different feel. It's all happy and the force be with you and that sort of thing. And putting yourself in those different situations can be really enlightening, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's a cool it's a cool avenue to get to know yourself and each other.
Mm-hmm. Oh yes, that's one of the reasons why I got into MMO role playing aside from tabletop role playing,
Yeah.
is because I there were just so many different parts of me that I didn't quite understand, and so I went on a heyday just making different characters and exploring them in different
Yeah.
avenues. Like, I role played in the Star Wars online game, I role
Cool.
played in Elder Scrolls, World of Warcraft, but outside of that, in all these different tabletops as well. I just really love it. I don't know how to finish that statement. I just really love role playing.
Yeah, I totally understand. Like M- Misty and I were just talking about it the other day. She has never finished any um, any of the Fallout or Skyrim games,
Hmm.
but she has put hundreds of hours into those games, especially Skyrim, because we it's fun to role play a different type of character.
Hmm.
She defaults to being a rogue. That's like it's a joke at the table. It's like, oh, did you build an edgy rogue character? Um,
She's not alone, because I also default into being a rogue. But
yeah, it's fun.
lately, to signify my maturity, I've been playing more rogue spellcasters. So,
Yeah, and once you realize that about yourself or your table calls you out on it, um, it's fun to start exploring those other avenues. So her current Skyrim build is an orc who is homesteading and focuses on two-handed things, but also crafting because she
hmm
wants to get to know her armorer husband better, and like it's cool when we find those inherent those inherent biases that we lean towards, and then we realize, oh, maybe I should try branching out, or maybe I dive deeper into a different type of rogue this time around. And yeah, it's such a cool avenue to get to know yourself and get to know your table.
hmm I agree. Oh god, I could go on and on about how much I just love how you can use role playing as a way to just experience different things without having to go super far out of your comfort zone, but still being able to do so. I just, it's one of those topics I could just go on and on about. Um,
Yeah, I totally get it.
but you were talking about, so with you in the roleplay rejects, and you guys are now going out into the wide world and going to conventions and stuff like that. How was
Yeah.
that? What was that like?
It was fun. So I've been to, let's see, like 3 conventions now. I am again a noob to the convention scene. Um, Misty's been to a bunch, but it's so much fun being around like-minded people, right?
Hmm.
Um, we went to PAX Unplugged last year. We didn't like run any games or anything. We were just there as normal convention goers. And it's so great being able to get excited and talk about rule sets and be like, okay, how does this relate to, D&D, as you're talking to someone about the game they just wrote, or talking to someone who's playing a board game that you've been interested in but you've never been able to like get a group together, or the board game's out of your price range, or
Mm-hmm.
whatever, and say like, hey, how much do you actually play this? How do you like these rules? Like it's so much fun being around like-minded people. And then this time around, running the games at the Nova Open was a great time, right? So I ran two different games. I ran Goblonia and I ran Slayers. And Goblonia is a game where you play goblins fighting against the Fae-triarchy, and the Fae are oppressive, but it's a game about goblins. So when my more than half of my table showed up drunk, I was like, oh, this will go fine.
I'm
We're
sorry.
no, like hey, we're here to do goblin things, um and yeah, they were tripping over each other and threw one of their characters out of a moving train at one point, and it was wild, right? And then Slayers, on the other hand, is more of a monster hunter, your monster slayers, right?
Mm-hmm.
And more of a Van Helsing type feel. Still kind of cartoony, but not as much as Goblonia.
Yeah.
And some of those same players showed up for Slayers, and they didn't show up drunk. And we had a very different game, and it was cool seeing the two sides of these guys. Right, the one where it's all poop jokes and getting the guards to puke and that sort of thing, and then in Slayers where it's like a kidnapping and we're worried about
Mm-hmm.
these kids, and like werewolves are on the rise right now, and like it was really cool seeing the two sides of those players, right? um yeah, there's actually a quote by Plato. I just looked it up. If you heard typing, that's what it was. um he said, you can discover more about a person in an hour of play than in a year of conversation. And I think that's 100% true, right? Wesley was talking about it just the other day. It feels like I have known Wesley for my entire life because we have gotten into these really deep subjects. We
Mm-hmm.
have we've gone on adventures together, and we've lost characters together,
Mm-hmm.
and like it's like I feel closer to Wesley than I do to most of my well, I'll say all of my high school friends, because I've been out of high school for like 10. Wow, yeah, a little more
Oh
than
man,
10.
I'm
Little
gonna
more,
I'm gonna take that clip and I'm gonna send it to him.
yeah,
I'm gonna take that exact bit just to make sure he knows.
yeah. Um, but yeah, I've been out of high school for like 10-ish years,
Mm-hmm.
and me and Wesley are so much tighter than those friends that I had in high school, right? And
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of that comes from these deep conversations that come up from role play, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
what is moral? If we are trying to get information from this guy, do we torture them? Do we um try and seduce them? Do we try and pay them off? Like, what is the line of like for our characters,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then we'll turn around and say like, hey, my character did that, but Joseph would not do that in real life. So
Yeah.
we it's fun having those deep conversations.
Right.
Yeah.
I definitely get that because I have a friend. His name is Troy. He's
Hmm.
I call him Best Buddy Troy,
Okay.
and he and I the same exact thing. Right. I love him so much more than pretty much anybody I've ever met in high school. But that's because like he and I can sit down and have these, like you said, deep conversations about these different scenarios. that's a whole funny story that I'll leave for a whole different podcast. But um, I can definitely see what you're saying.
Yeah. I've been reading through. Are you familiar with Cult Divinity Lost?
Cult Divinity Lost. I am not, but I can Google it and
Oh,
then
you're
be
fine.
so.
So, it is a very, very dark role playing game.
Ooh, ooh.
Probably too dark for our table,
Uh-huh.
which I don't say very often. Um, but I got one of the add-on source books last week, and it's called Beyond Darkness and Madness, and they talk about how to write a good horror role-playing game and write a good campaign for your players. And the first rules are like, hey, like, horror is even more personal than your average role-playing game,
Mm-hmm.
so you need to be very serious about the lines and veils if you're going to use them, or the X card if you're going to use it. And they don't recommend the X card because they think it's too black and white.
Mm-hmm.
And but also, like, if you are signed up for that sort of thing, right, you want there to be scary things. And so knowing what the limits of your players are because you've had a good session zero and checking back in on them periodically is
Mm-hmm.
something that the cult Divinity Lost system is very, very good about. And I am preparing for a different horror game here in a few months. I'm not going to spoil it for our listeners, but the the idea of the contract is just so well defined in Cult that
Mm-hmm.
I ended up buying the source book and flipping through it so I could see their perspective on how do you keep people engaged with horror when it is, like, by definition something that you want to run away from. um like, how do you keep a player um comfortable enough to keep the story going but uncomfortable enough that you're scratching that horror itch for them, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Would you say that this is one of your favorite systems? Because that was going to be one of my questions I wanted to ask was like, well, which one is your favorite system? Because I know that you've played so many now.
Yeah. Cult is not my favorite system. I really appreciate all of the work around it, because
Mm-hmm.
a lot of times in role playing games, when they talk about like player safety rules, it seems very surface level and kind of as an afterthought. But in
Mm-hmm.
Cult, it's like the focus is like, hey, you got to keep your players safe if you are going to be talking about torture and rape and other
Mm-hmm.
like triggering concepts that you don't know who has been through what at your table, right? Even
Mm-hmm.
if you've been together for um 3 or 4 years, like our table has, like, you don't know what's going to set someone off, and they
Right.
might have had a bad experience recently, or
Yeah. Yeah.
maybe they're just terrified of mannequins like I am.
Uh, I definitely get that because I can't as much as I love listening to you guys, and I have pretty much listened to every single thing y'all's put out so far.
Okay.
I can't listen to the Borg Morg Borg. I'm sorry,
Morkborg, yeah.
Mork Borg, because I know that involves children, and
Yep.
I can't do anything with kids. I
Yeah.
really can't. It's just it's one of those things where I love people. I love having conversations with people, but and I love listening to stories, but the moment a kid is involved, and
Yep.
they can get hurt, regardless of like if I'm enjoying the movie or not, if it happens, I have to stop. I can't watch it anymore.
Yeah, and that's totally, like, normal, right? Is to
Hmm.
have a handful of subjects that you just don't want to breach, right? It's not fun for you. You don't want to see it on TV. You don't want to role play it out, definitely, because that's even more personal.
Hmm.
And yeah, knowing what those lines are for your players is really important. And respecting that is also really important.
Hmm.
you hear so many horror stories on like Reddit or other social media where they're like, my DM is just using this game to like fulfill his kink fantasies and like do gross things
Mm-hmm.
in his imagination with us following along. Like
Mm-hmm.
that doesn't sound like a good time, right? And so keeping your players comfortable is super important. um Favorite system though, since you
Mm-hmm.
asked, it's really tough because we have gone through so many. Like there are aspects of almost every single one of the systems that I really liked.
Mm-hmm.
um in Fallout, it's the hit locations.
Oh,
They're
I like hit locations.
Yeah, the hit locations are great, and on the character sheet you have like a separate spot to put HP for each limb in if you want to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And I really love that. um Shadows of Asterin, it was the stances aspect where as you are fighting, you can change your stance, and that might move you up in the initiative order. It might push you back. It might give you bonuses to attack, defense, whatever. Um, let's see, Bunkers and Badasses. I just
Oh, I
loved
love
how
bunkers and Bedasses.
it's so much fun, right?
Oh, it's so much fun. We were playing it for a little bit. Me and my friends were. We stopped just because everyone got so busy. But it was so fun. That was I had a character who I loved to death in that one. And she was a spell sniper as it was,
Cool.
and
Okay.
I fucking loved her. I thought she was so cool.
Yeah, and Bunkers and Badasses, right? You feel like a badass.
Yeah.
And it's very good at taking that video gamey feel and translating it to the tabletop.
Mm-hmm.
And
Oh yeah, with the whole what is it called? Badass points. Is that what it
badass
was?
points
Yeah. I
and
I
having a
remember.
shield, right?
Oh yeah.
Like I can run into combat and get right in the middle of everything and not have to worry about how many hit points I'm gonna take for the first part of the fight, which does encourage some like murder hobo-ness. But that game's just so much fun. They did so well making it video gamey.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, my I remember one time we were playing, and so I'm a sniper, right? And I'm just trying to I thought I was gonna be clever, right? And get like two, like I was gonna shoot two people with one bullet, right? And I was like, oh, this is gonna be so
Cool.
cool.
Yeah.
And then my friend Jack was like, before he does that, I'm gonna spend a badass point to shove these two other people right in line with the
Nice.
other two. So I wound up being able to shoot all four of them at the same
Dude.
exact time, and it's one of those moments where everyone is cheering, hooting, and hollering, and having
Yep.
a blast, and I was like, oh,
Yeah, that sounds like a scene out of Deadpool or something.
I'm getting some serotonin just thinking about it.
I know, right?
Anyways, sorry, got the chills. Go ahead.
No, yeah, out of all of those systems though,
Mm-hmm.
I think Pathfinder is my favorite just because it is so broad.
Mm-hmm.
You can do anything you want in Pathfinder, and if you want to do it in sci-fi, there's Starfinder.
Yeah. And
Um,
can't you mix the two? Isn't the
yeah,
thing you
Mhm.
can mix and match?
Yeah, they're compatible with each other. So if you have a dwarf that just happens to fall through a time portal or whatever, you
Mm-hmm.
can keep playing that dwarf, but in a sci-fi setting, and vice versa, which is wild, right? Like
Yeah.
I haven't played Starfinder yet. It is on our radar. We want to at some point. But um, like Pathfinder, there's just so much diversity and so many options and so
Mm-hmm.
many add-ons because it's been around for a while and a lot of people have written stuff for it.
Mm-hmm.
It gives you so much freedom. Um,
And it's like you said, well loved, well supported. Like it's just
yeah,
yeah.
and like we don't play it on the podcast because it's not new or unusual, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's been around for a while, and it's pretty much just D&D 3.5 with a bunch of years of user content.
Oh, speaking of, I know that
Yeah,
I
go
know
for it.
Stevie from the Roleplay Rejects
Yeah.
is going to run an Avatar game.
Yeah.
Do you know? Are you excited for that?
I am. Okay, now that we've talked about Avatar, I think whatever game is coming next is my favorite game because I get excited about them. But yeah, dude, the I love the Avatar world,
Hmm.
right? I I didn't grow up watching a whole lot of Nickelodeon. Is that what it was on?
Yeah, it was a Nickelodeon.
Yeah,
Oh,
we did.
just so everybody out there who's listening, we're talking about Avatar: The Last Airbender system. It's also
Yes.
Korra, or The Legend of Avatar. Korra. What was the second one with Korra?
The Legend of Korra. Yeah.
The Legend of Korra. Okay, so I just messed all that up.
No,
Forgive
you're
me.
good. um, but yeah, those like that world is already just so rich
Hmm.
and
And
has
unique.
yeah, right? Like the elemental aspects of each of the nations is so cool. And yes, yeah, we are excited to play that. It is in the works. I guess Stevie already told y'all, but we eventually are going to be playing that. I can actually see the rule book from where I'm sitting right now.
Oh, that's so cool. Yeah, I know. I got mine right here, and I'm just every single day I wake up and I gently just touch the spine of the book and say, "Someday, my child,
Oh
someday,
yeah, one day.
one day."
Oh man. Yeah. And there's a whole lot of games that we haven't played yet that I'm excited about. Like Delta Green, Call of Cthulhu. Um
I don't know what Delta Green is.
Delta Green is it's like Call of Cthulhu but modern day.
Hmm.
It's a lot of like X-Files type feeling. Um little modules and yeah, that's what it is. You're a Delta Green agent, which is
Okay.
essentially the X-Files agents.
Okay. Okay. That's pretty cool. I like that.
Yeah.
I like
Um
this. I like this. I like the mystery and spooky, scary stuff.
yeah, me too. Um I'm excited to play Cyberpunk because it started as a role-playing game, for those of
Hmm.
you who have
Yeah.
played the video game, right? And the role-playing game's been around for a while. But it's not very well known, right?
Hmm.
Dune has a role-playing game now, and I
Dune
love
has
the
a
roller.
role-playing game.
Yeah, um,
What?
yeah, it's a thing.
When did this happen?
I think it's pretty recent.
I should just never be. I should just never be surprised.
Yeah, right. A lot of IPs have role-playing games now, so if it's one of the major ones, there's probably a game out there for it,
Do,
or
do
some
you
homebrew
do,
stuff.
do you like? I'm assuming you like sci-fi. Did you watch a
Oh
lot
yeah,
of old sci-fi stuff?
oh yeah.
Back when,
Uh-huh.
did you know Stargate recently put out a tabletop?
Ooh, no, I didn't.
Yeah, like Stargate has this whole thing, and there's a website dedicated to like live storytelling. So like they put
Cool.
out new stuff like I think it's like every other month or something like that.
Oh, fun.
Um yeah, and you can like go through the stories, and it's really cool, and it's something I've always wanted to be interested in. If you could just keep that in the back of your head in like some
Yeah, dude.
crevice of your brain, that'd be delightful.
Yeah, dude. I love Stargate. I watched a lot of that with my dad growing up. It was
Yeah.
we would alternate between Stargate and Star Trek.
Oh yeah, I never watched
Yeah.
Star Trek, but my grandmother was a big sci-fi fan, and she watched a
Okay.
lot of Trimmers and like
Nice. Yeah.
stuff like that and Stargate.
Okay.
So that's where I got it from. Anyway, sorry about that. I kind of went off on a
No,
tangent
you're
again.
good. Yeah, Dune is something to get excited about. I totally understand.
I didn't know. I barely know anything about Dune except for the spice.
Yeah. Have you seen the new movie?
No, I have not. But
It
I
is
have seen a lot
very
of
good.
I have seen a lot of conversation about the effects of Dune and how the inside of the worm's mouth at that one shot
Oh
is
yeah.
actually some guys someone's nose hairs.
Yeah, it's like it's a combination between a beatboxer's throat
Uh-huh.
and then some nose hairs. Yeah.
Oh man, wow. I love effects so much.
Isn't that crazy?
It
Um
is.
Have you ever watched Corridor Crew on YouTube?
Yes, I
Oh,
love the
dude,
Corridor Crew.
I was just watching their most recent episode this morning, actually.
The one
Um,
with what's his name? Mission Impossible guy.
yep, yeah, with Tom Cruise.
Yep,
Yep,
Tom Cruise. There he goes. I can never remember his name.
yeah, and they were
Anyways,
talking about how real his stunts were.
yeah, nah, you couldn't catch me doing all that. Nope. Sorry, fam. That's why he makes the big bucks and I do not.
Yeah, right.
I do not want to hold on to the side of a plane for any reason. I want to be inside the plane, and that's that.
Yeah, and sometimes I don't even want that.
No, I don't blame you.
Yeah.
Hello, hello, hello. We are Roleplay Rejects, an actual play podcast that is all about new and unusual tabletop role-playing games. Our show explores various role-playing systems and their associated worlds while being guided by one of the rejects as Game Master. Each story is entirely separate and designed to be listened to in any order, and comes complete with laughter
Bippity boppity, I'm gonna take your lunch money.
and sadness,
I've never killed anything before.
puns,
We struck Yukon Gold.
and whatever the hell this is. So what are you waiting for? Listen to Roleplay Rejects wherever you get podcasts.
So we've sort of talked a lot about like some of the darker aspects of role playing,
Yeah.
especially some of the heavier stuff. So I should also ask, on the opposite side of that, like, do you have like a preferred safety system for people as well?
Yes. So we actually went through cottages and Cerberuses recently, or Cerberus. I'm still not sure how to pronounce that. But it's considered a cottage core game. And so it's like Animal Crossing meets Monster Hunter meets tabletop role playing. And
What is
so
this? Oh, what is this?
yeah, it's
I
on
love
Kickstarter
this.
right now.
Oh,
By the time this comes out, it will be off of Kickstarter. I think they'll be finished by then. But
yeah,
dude,
19 more days.
it is so much fun. Like I don't know how old your kids are, but like this is a great game for kids. Because you have a very detailed cottage and like shire type life
I love
going on.
this.
And then yeah, right. And then you go out monster hunting, essentially for things to add to your cottage. So we wanted to put in a pool for like the fish and butterflies and stuff. And so we went and hunted down a phoenix, and we've got a big like phoenix sculpture shrubbery something in the middle of the pool now, because we went on this cool adventure, and that is a like a testament to our adventure. And a couple of weeks before, they fought a mole, right? Like a crystalline mole, something like that. I wasn't there that week. But they fought this mole, and then they turned his drill into a blender. And so now whenever they have block parties, they get a +1 to their food creation roll, whatever that is. Yeah, like it's adorable. It's a lot of fun.
I love this.
Yeah, if you're coming off something creepy or intense like Morkborg, Cottages and Cerberus are
It's a good
great
cleanser.
Yeah, it's a great game. It's a lot of fun. And a lot of our one shots end up being palate cleansers, right? Lady Blackbird was a super fun like
Blackbird?
Yeah.
Yes, I remember that one.
Yeah, right? It's steampunk, and you're pirates, and you're flying around in airships, and that was a blast. Really liked that one. And a lot of the a lot of the role-playing games that fit on one page are good palate cleansers. There's one called Honey Heist that we haven't gotten around to. But yeah, Kids on Bikes. Have you heard about that one?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, Kids on Bikes is another great palate cleanser. We did Mall Kids a while back, which is a very similar feel, where you play teenagers working at the mall, and you're trying to be cool teenagers and not be lame. And there's a lot of really good palate cleansers out there. I
Yeah, this.
definitely lean towards the darker games
Hmm.
because I like exploring those parts of like humanity and personality, and like the situations that I wouldn't put myself in willingly. I can put my character in and see how I would react.
That is definitely a conversation about safety, like more safe environments that you can role play in. I
Yeah,
was more asking about like safety systems, like not like as
yeah.
like safety tools is what I should have said.
Safety tools.
Safety
Yes.
tools like lines and veils and stuff like that. Like, do you have any preferred safety tool that you like to employ in your games?
So there's one that I am going to incorporate that I haven't used yet, and it's the stoplight system.
Stoplight.
Yeah, the stoplight system.
Okay.
So in front of each player, you give them a red, yellow, and green light,
Uh-huh.
right? And
Yeah.
it can just be like printed out on a piece of paper and they can tap it,
Yeah.
right? And if you're having an intense scene, you kind of indicate to the player, like, hey, look at your traffic light. I'm yellow right now, which means let's keep it at this intensity, but not go overboard, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Or you can say green, right? I am ready to go. Like, I know we're yelling at each other right now because our characters are in a heated debate. But like, I want to keep this going, or like this torture scene is rough, but I want to keep it moving. And then you can move down to the yellow, and then you can stop things entirely at the red if it becomes too much.
Mm-hmm. No, that's
And
good. I like
yeah,
that. I like that a lot.
yeah, that's one I took from Cult Divinity Lost, because they do breach on all of those very, very dark topics. And so if you're getting into a situation where you're not quite sure how another player is feeling or how the DM is feeling, because it's for the DM as well, you indicate using your traffic light. And if you're using it, then the person you're talking to needs to indicate where they are on that scale too.
I like that. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a lot. I've never heard about this system, but that is
Yeah.
a system I would definitely like to employ myself.
Yeah. I want to run a horror game in a couple of months, and that is one of the systems that I am planning on employing, because horror games they're rough. They can put you in some scary places, but that's kind of the point of them. So I hope that yellow light gets used a good bit, right? Where
Mm-hmm.
we find that middle ground where this is the intensity that we want,
Mm-hmm.
and no one is feeling uncomfortable. No one feels like they have to run from the table, sort of thing.
Well, just uncomfortable enough to where they get the that delightful horror feeling. You know what I'm
Yeah,
talking
those
about? That,
heebie-jeebies.
but
Yeah.
again, it's consensual uncomfortableness,
Yes.
not uncomfortableness from something that you don't want happening, like someone touching you or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, so I'm real excited to use that system. The systems that I've seen in the past as well are the lines and veils system. Lines are things that you do not cross. You establish those in session 0, and you come back to them every once in a while. And for example, like bad things happening to children would be a
Mm-hmm.
line for you. That is where the game stops being fun and you don't want to be here anymore. So we're just not going to talk about that.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have veils, which are like, I'm okay if it happens in our game world, but I don't want it brought up at the table and like acted out. And a good example of that is most players don't like acting out sex scenes.
Mm-hmm.
With other players, with the GM, it doesn't really matter. It's just uncomfortable for everybody, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so if that is a veil for you, then we'll have something like we did on the Fallout podcast, where Frankie and Wolfgang are, which are Damien and Stevie, who are married in real life. So it was really funny. But the two of them are like flirting, and we're like, oh, like, is this where this is going? And their characters hit it off. And so there was a fade to black when they went into Wolfgang's bedroom.
Mm-hmm.
And that was that's one of those veils that we've established at our table. Like, hey, sex happens. It's going to happen in some of our games. We're okay if that does happen, but I don't want to be role playing in front of my friends, even if it is with my wife, and have a detailed sex scene, right?
Right. Yeah, of course.
Yeah. And for some people, they're the same way with violence. Like, hey, like, I'm okay with cuts and bruises and stuff, but I don't want to have a graphic beheading and like going into detail with the gore and that sort of thing in my game. And so, as a GM and as like fellow players, you got to respect that and be like, okay, well, hey, I slice into the guy, I deal 4 points of damage. That's all you need to say, right? You don't have to get into literally the gory details. You can slow it down and do it inside of your own mind, because like you said, it is a consent thing, right? We want everyone to be comfortable so they keep coming back, and so
everyone can have fun and everyone can enjoy the story, because that's what we're there for. I keep praising, maybe I shouldn't use the word praising, but I keep trying to advocate for role playing as a form of social gathering. And it's really, if you like tabletop games and you like role-playing games, hell, it doesn't even matter if it's tabletop. If it's like online, like in an MMO, like that, again, you want people to be comfortable, because you're here, you're coming to a table, figuratively and literally, to tell a story. And unfortunately, a lot of times, unless you're playing like a solo tabletop or like Skyrim or a solo tabletop role-playing game, you need the other people to be there, not only to witness the narrative, but to also be able to reciprocate that narrative, to be able to give you further narrative to expound on and to communicate with and to continue the story.
Yeah, definitely.
Thank you so much for coming on, Joseph.
Hey, it's been a pleasure.
It has truly been just such an enjoyable experience talking with you. And I'm not just saying that. It is really good to speak with you.
Good. Yeah. Hey, if I'd be more than happy to come back on, just hit me up. Let me know when.
Yeah, you're more than welcome to. Anytime you guys want to. Y'all are all more than welcome to.
Okay.
Any last words for potential role players out there, whether they're people who want to make games, people who just want to play games, like that?
There's a game out there for everybody, right? D&D might not be your game, and that's fine. And that's the whole idea of our podcast, Roleplay Rejects. You can find us on Spotify, iTunes, wherever you listen to podcasts. And there is a game out there for you, I promise. Right? If you don't like rolling dice, there's games that work off of cards. There's games where you don't roll any dice at all. Like, there is a game for everybody, and finding one that works well for your friend group is just amazing, right? I could not be more blessed, more happy with my table, because we can try out all these different new and unusual games.
That's awesome. Thank you so much, Joseph.
Yeah, I had a great time. Thanks for having me.
And that's all I got right now. I really appreciate you all listening. I know my voice is not the best, and I know that my editing skills are not the best either, but I am slowly learning to get into the flow of things again. But besides all that, I have a lot of new stuff happening very soon up on my channel. And also, I'm going to start progressing the website again, getting more communities up there, getting more tabletops up there, linked to their official sites, and reaching out to more actual play groups so that you can see what the game is about before you go and purchase it. That's one of the biggest things I wanted to do with the website. So, check that out if you don't mind. I really appreciate it. And if you would like to support this crazy dream of mine, that is to help the community, to build up this community, to bring the community together. I think I might have said that twice. Then please go support my Patreon. It would be fantastic. Or if you're listening to this on YouTube, like, subscribe, the whole jig. Not very good at saying those three things, but please, if you don't mind just subscribing or coming to the Discord and talking with me and giving me your opinion, I would love to hear from it. So again, thank you so much. And if I don't see you in the Discord, then I will see you next Thursday. Thank you.